Hello, this is Peter Knudson coming to you from Boomer Music, and I am here today to talk about how to change your basic drum head. Today we're going to be dealing with specifically a snare drum head. The snare drum, of course, is the snares, the buzzy drum. First question, why do you change a drum head? A couple different reasons. The biggest is because the drum starts losing its tone and it just doesn't sound very good anymore. So that's when you know it's time to change a head. Usually after about a year, if it's being played on regularly, you want to change a drum. How do you know when it's time to change a drum head? Some things that we are looking for, this is the top side of the head. You can see that there are definite divots in there that somebody was getting after the snare drum. Sometimes it's a pointy stick that does that. Sometimes the angle is too high and they're coming down on that, so that can happen. And also this is a coated head. So if you feel the drum head, it's very smooth. So if you can hear that compared to that. So the coating has pretty much worn off of this head. Some people like that sound though. It doesn't mean you have to change it. It's just a personal preference. If I flip this head over, now you can really see all the little dents that were done to it. And all that equates to, if you think of a straight, your sound of a drum being a straight line on like a signal, like a radio signal, then all these little divots are putting in peaks and valleys into that sound line. So it can be a little bit harder to tune after a while. Not always though, sometimes it doesn't really affect it, but a lot of times it can. Other things that can happen is the rim or the collar of the drum can pull away from the actual drum head. And that's just called basically the drum head pulling out. And you can kind of see a little bit of it happening right here, where the collar is pulling out away from the drum head a little bit. So that definitely can happen. You want to avoid that. It's definitely time to change a drum head if that happens. Okay. A couple things I'm going to need. The drum key. The drum key is a T-shaped, square-headed key, and that's what goes into all of your tension rods here to loosen the drum head. So the first thing I'm going to do is do that. So I'm going to arbitrarily, doesn't matter where you start, I'm just going to start and go around. And for the sake of time, what I do is I just start loosening this. I'm going to finish it with my finger as I start the next tension rod. Without a drum key, this is not a fun job. Do not use pliers or a needle nose plier because you will damage these tension rods substantially. There's also tools you can use. You can use a power drill with a bolt style or a square-headed style attachment. Just make sure it's in the reverse position, not the forward position, so you don't crank down on it too hard. But that is a handy little cheat that you can use. Okay, so now I've loosened up and taken off all of the tension rods. I guess I could use a key. There we go. So now the drum head just pulls right off with the hoop attached to it. I'm going to remove this drum to show you something. Lots of dirt and dust can get collected on the inside here. So I'm going to take this off, and I'm just going to kind of tap this a little bit. And I don't know if you can see all that crud that just came out of there. Yeah, that's a lot. And that's just coming in through this area. As you hit it, the stick will, it's made of wood, so it will chip and dust will get in there. So one thing I'm going to do real quick now that I have the hoop off, is I'm going to take a rag and just wipe off the underside of the hoop. Get some of that crud off underneath there, that old stuff. Okay, set that down. I'm going to have my snare drum. I'm going to turn it upside down, just give it a shake, a little tap. Try to get rid of any other loose grit or dirt that's in there. One thing you can do since everything is open is just take a screwdriver and check to make sure everything is tight. I just did that not too long ago on this drum, so I'm pretty confident that this drum is secured. All right, so I put the drum back down. I arbitrarily grab a drum head. This is just a random drum. It doesn't mean that this is the best one or anything like that. And I'm just going to give it a same thing, quick wipe on the inside. I'm going to place it on the drum. Some people like to put the logo where the logo of the drum is. Not necessary. There is no rhyme or reason to it. Put that there. Now I have my hoop. I'm going to set that back down. And every now and then you are going to want to oil the inserts, which is where the tension rod goes into the lug. This is the lug. This is the insert here. Just a little drop of oil, or you can put a little bit of grease on the tip of your tension rod there. Like I said, I just did that not too long ago with this drum, so I know that it's pretty well lubricated. All right, so now from here, I'm going to put my tension rods back into the inserts. I'm just going to do that by hand, get them all going. Okay, now from here, I'm just going to kind of make sure that the hoop is firmly in contact with the drum head itself, with the collar of the drum head. And then from here, I'm going to just take my fingers again and tighten down the tension rods. Now this way, I am going to go across, just to keep the tension even. And I'm going to turn until I can't turn anymore without any force, just to where it grabs, so I don't over-tighten. If we over-tighten one side versus the other, the hoop starts pulling on the drum head, which means the rim is going to warp, which eventually is going to lead to the shell warping, and we definitely want to avoid any warpage. So now I'm ready to apply pressure with the drum key. You'll notice the drum head is very loose, no sound coming out of it. So now I'm going to, again, pretty much arbitrarily pick a spot. Let's think of this as a clock again, 12, 6, 3, 9. I'm going to arbitrarily pick 2. And I'm going to just start tightening down just a little bit. Then I'm going to cut across, go to the 8 o'clock, cut across. I'm going to go to my 4 o'clock. So I'm going this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. Go up to my 10 o'clock, over to my 3 o'clock, my 9 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock. Okay, now I have general tension on the drum head. Ooh, lovely. So now we're going to make that sound good. So again, if I push down on the head, I don't know if you can see this on the video, you can see those little ripples. You know that's where it's especially loose. So you just want to pay attention that we're making sure all the ripples are gone there. And then from here, I'm just going to take the palm of my hand, just lightly push down on the head. Just kind of get the glue loosened up a little bit. You hear that crackling, not a big deal. This can take a lot of pressure, believe me, but you don't want to test how much pressure. Just be reasonable with it. Okay, so I checked that 2 o'clock. I'm going to take my drum key or my finger, put my other finger, my index finger, just in the middle of the drum, very lightly. I'm not going to push down on the drum. I'm just putting it there, just a place. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm going to tune each tension rod spot to the same tone. If you use a drum key, sometimes what happens if I tap, you get a better tone, but you can chip the drum head a little bit if your drum key is marked up a little bit or rough. Or if you're not careful, you can whap the bearing edge, which is where the drum head meets the shell, and you don't want to dent that bearing edge because that messes with the tuning as well. For this, I know this is a good head. I know my drum key isn't very damaged, so I'm going to use my drum key. And I can hear that warbly tone, wow, wow. I can hear how that's a little bit higher. I'm going to go around and check the rest of them. Looser, looser, mid. Okay, so now we're going to start getting those all to the same tone. I did about a full turn there. Cut across. You can hear how that's lower. and try to sing the tones back to yourself. So if I have a little bit higher, so I'm going to get that one to that pitch. Going with that pitch. Hear that crack, that's the glue loosening up in the head. So from here I'm going to give it a little bit of a push. It wants to, so we're good there. Now you're going to notice the tone dropping. Okay, so this is the one I'm going with. A little bit lower. Pretty much on there. Check here, a little bit lower, and that's going to happen a lot of times. So bring that up. Oh, that's lower. Okay, well, that one's lower. That one's lower. Still lower, lower, I can't sing that tone. Pretty much all are right where I want them. So from here, I'm going to check my tone on my drum. Turn the snares on. My drumstick's a little dirty, so it's leaving little marks there. Okay, that's pretty good. That's about a mid-range tuning. It's not too high, it's not too low. Now, one of the important things here I have to do is check this bottom head, especially for the snare drums. One thing is, anytime you're changing that head, you kind of want to put a little more tension on this bottom head, just to stretch it out a little bit more. It's going to give it just a little bit crisper attack. I'm going to do the same thing here. Check the tone. Pretty good on tension there. This bottom head's dirty, so I'm going to give it a little wipe real quick. Okay, going to go back and check this. You hear a little bit of a rattle there for the snare. That's just because the snares are a little loose, so I'm going to tighten up the tension on them. Now they're a little choked, so I'm going to back them off a little. Pretty good there. Now from there I can go tighter, I can go looser. You have a lot of options. So that is your basic quick way of how to change a drum head. Now the only difference between doing a snare drum and doing a tom-tom like this is that the top and bottom heads you're tuning those to each other. So that's a little bit different tale there. Typically I tune mine about a third, if you're thinking pianos and steps, 3 whole steps different. Sometimes not that severe, sometimes only even a half step, but that's all depending on the drum and the drum head type. So that's a whole different kind of story there. But on a general snare drum, this is the tried and true way. All right, well, again, my name is Peter Knudson for Boomer Music, and thanks for watching.